Okay. What's going on here? Oh, okay, away we go. We are, I think, in our last class for this term. Is that correct? Hmm. All right. I might actually complete with you this section of the Haggadah, maybe. Maybe because we've had quite a few classes, thank God. I think 16 or 17 classes on the Haggadah. Um, and uh, and there's more to come, but we actually are at a section ending, so I'm very happy about that. And I want to just dive in with you directly into this next piece of the Haggadah, which continues the speech being made by the person bringing the Bikurim. If you remember, that's the whole structure of what we've been doing. This person is standing there with the first fruits from their land, and is bringing this whole history to the Kohen, telling this story, which is really the only other place in the Torah where there's a story told as part of a mitzvah. And so it's a beautiful insight of Chazal. This should be the story we tell, is the story that's told in the bringing of the first fruits. And as we described from various vantage points, this really creates a whole environment for the Seder night. It's something which already sort of inspires you to a sense of completion of this long journey which we've been on, of the freshness of the first fruits, and that freshness reflected also in what I'm being invited to experience, and the inheritance of the land, which this is a reflection of, which was in the very first um, uh, prophecy about us going to Egypt and becoming slaves there, was all about the inheritance of the land. I mean, there's so much which becomes, thick with layers of meaning in choosing this passage as being the one which describes the leaving of Egypt. That I hope we've at least been able to share, some of that together. And it's defined, as I pointed out, by the Mishnah as saying v'doresh me'arami oved avi. A person makes drashot about the passage of, my father was almost destroyed by an Aramean, and doresh kol parasha kula, the entire speech. Well, as we're going to discover, we don't actually do that, and at least not explicitly. And that also will be part of what we'll explore today. But before we get to that, let's just go into this next verse, which is spoken, right? If you remember, we were kind of in the middle of it. If did we talk about the plagues yet? We didn't really talk about them, right? Yeah, because what happens is this statement of this person is Vayotzienu Hashem miMitzrayim. Hashem took us out of Egypt. And if you remember, I pointed out to you that there's no need for that proper noun again of Hashem. Like, it's clear that we're talking about Hashem because we were just talking about him in the previous verse. And so from there, the rabbis understood that we want to emphasize that it's God, not an angel. It's God, not a messenger. It's God, not a saraf. It's like, it's God, it's God, it's God, it's all God, and no other. It's like this very, very, overdone kind of impassioned statement that it's only God. And that we did explore very much last time, about how the alignment with the divine comes by virtue of our re-experiencing this shift, which is the ongoing experience of life of narrow straits and expanded vision, which then become the narrow straits and need again expanded vision, etc. That eternal process moving. It's not circular. It's moving um, towards greater and greater uh, on all levels, greater and greater. Right? Is the way in which we are in touch with Hashem, and that's the way the Haggadah says that is by insisting it's only God, it's God. This is a godly thing, leaving Egypt. This is not an angelic one or seraphic one, and nor is it some outside, um, you know, disconnected or estranged power. Lo ani Hashem, anihu velo acher, and not another. Okay, and that's what we'd gotten up to last time. So now the verse goes on, right? And the remainder of the verse opens up a whole new section of the drasha and is really the end of the drasha on the speech of the person bringing the Bikurim. It opens up this whole new section about something which, hey, what are you going to do? We haven't mentioned up until now. And that is the 10 plagues. All right, yeah, they were a part of the story, and we haven't even talked about that yet. I mean, it's very weird that only now at the very end we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about it quite a bit. In this class, we will not talk about the Haggadah text a whole lot about it, although I'd love to. We don't have time. It becomes very interesting, and we'll look at it. But what I want to explore with you is what's that about? What's the deal? Like what's the deal with all of these plagues? Um, you know, and the way the Haggadah brings it is in the following, by continuing through this verse where this person says that God took us out of Egypt, right? With a strong hand and an outstretched arm, and with great awesomeness, and with signs and with wonders, right? We got 5 things we're being told about, which is already interesting. There seems to be something important about that, and there is, as we'll see, that it needs to be delineated. Again, it could have said that God took us out of Egypt with a strong arm, a strong hand, an outstretched arm, with great awe, with signs. I don't know. You could have chosen 1 or 2 of them probably. If all you wanted to say was He took us out with force, right? But it's apparently important that we see there's some kind of a delineation, right, of these different ways in which Hashem did the taking out. So that's number 1 thing to notice about this verse, right? There's apparently something different between a strong hand and an outstretched arm. And there is, but like, how does that reflect itself in the, let's call them the Negaim, because the Torah actually calls them the Negaim, right? And in more modern usage, they're called the Makot, Negaim, Makot. And in English, it's called the plagues, right? So Makot actually means the hittings, the Negaim.
The what?
To hit something is to be makeh, it's fine. And in a way that's a useful term, because that's the whole period of the desert ends really when Moshe is told, don't hit the stone, talk to it. And that transition is not one that Moshe is going to make, as we know about that, and that's a whole profound exploration of its own. But in a way, the Makot are something which is the project of Moshe, and it continues to be his project, but that's not appropriate to the land of Israel, and so he doesn't go in. That's its own fascinating subject. And so they became called the Makot, right? But in the Torah, they're called the Negaim. Hashem refers to them in Shemot as the Negaim. Later in the Tanakh, they're also Makeh, Kol B'charei Mitzrayim, etc. We use the word Makeh. Okay, just to, we get a little into the language here. I want to come back to that, but like, what we're being told here is these 10 makot, these 10 nigaim, are apparently 5 different types, or there are 5 different elements to them, right? They're both a strong hand, meaning power. They're also an outstretched arm, which in some ways guiding a way. They also elicit great awe. They're also symbols of something. That's an oat. They're symbols of something, right? And they're moftim, they're wondrous, which hasn't been mentioned until now, okay? That already sounds a little more interesting. Like, if they're symbols, Hashem is communicating something. So there's the symbol and there's the semantic, meaning the meaning that stands behind it, right? So there's some meaning here. If it's an oat, a letter in the alphabet is called an oat. Something very interesting in my mind is that the root aleph and vav. See that? Yeah. Aleph and vav. Some have it aleph yud vav, vav hey. But there are positions in our early teachers that just two letters could form a root. That root means will and desire. And then the word oat just adds that tough there, which means that it's embedded or comes to manifestation, comes to an end point. It's the last letter of the alphabet, and it also has other usages, that letter, which indicate that about it, that it's the ending. It's a feminine ending, which has to do with, something is born into this by virtue of will and desire. That's super important because all the otiyot letters that we use are meaningless unless there is a intention behind it, right? I'm gonna just be on this thing about oat for a minute because it's very important, and it's often the language that's used for the makot, for the plagues, that are otot. It's important because I mean, as creatures of consciousness, our modalities of communication and of passing information are, in a sense, bifurcated. But they're split. Bifurcation is like a split, meaning I'm talking to you now, right? Talking to you now. If I were a computer and you are a computer, so I would be passing on information, which doesn't reflect any willfulness on my part. It could be the programmer had willfulness, but not on my part, right? As a computer. And you're receiving that information, which is what's going on all the time with computers communicating with each other, so to speak, right? Sending out signals and right, and passing. Really, it's misnamed, but passing information. It's not really passing information. They're passing electrical signals. I'll explain to you why I say that in a minute, and why that's so important to us here, right? That 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 we call that communication. It's not really communication because it's not really communing between computers, say, right? Because they're sending signals. Those signals are being received, and they're activating certain mechanical processes, like calculating something, like showing you an article from Wikipedia, like gathering other electrical signals that are of similar sort so that you get your essay for your PhD written by the artificial intelligence, right? Or whatever it is. There's no willfulness there, nor is there experience there. And this is something so important to us. This is like so timely. There's no willfulness, there's no experience, there's no personhood, there's no responsiveness. There's none of the elements which we call consciousness and living, right? And there is no freedom. There's no freedom, right? It's a enchained reality, enchained in chain, so to speak. I mean, the computer doesn't think of it that way. That's just what it is, it doesn't think at all. It's basically trapped in the structures which have been predetermined for it and does mechanical functions that are in no way at all similar to even what we call passing information. I'll tell you what I mean by that. This is super important. Like that I am, say, if I say to you, if I show up this morning at 10:20, we're going to have a class. If I don't show up, you should know it's because my daughter went to give birth and I went with her. Okay? Look at her smiling. She's already smiling. Yeah. Like, what? So if I don't show up, you get information from my not showing up or from my showing up, right? But not only did you get information, it made you feel good, didn't it? That's true information, meaning that something has been formed of meaningful quantity or qualia, as they're called, an inner experience, which is completely dependent upon you being a conscious creature with a very rich interiority that experiences things, that loves, that cares, that, wow, his granddaughter might have just given birth. I mean, and that would have been communicated to you by my not showing up. You would have been happy by my not showing up. It's a good thing they wouldn't film that. But like, you understand that true information involves meaning. And in the human realm, meaningfulness is always a conscious activity in which you are not only getting the mechanical, my being here, my not being here. That's what the computer would pick up, and then it would know that, so to speak, means, okay, automatically call the replacement teacher for bing, 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 like, but there's no experience there. There's nothing that reflects a personhood there. It's not really an oat. It's not really an oat. It's a symbol, but an oat is more than a symbol. An oat carries within it desire, intention, and meaning on the part of the person who is delivering it. That's why we talk in otiyot. On the one hand, right, the words we build, right, the words we build are called milim, which means they're cut. What they are cut, they're cut into the fabric of letters, of otiyot, right? They're cut. It's like if I give like, I go like so that's not really information for you, unless you interpret it to mean that I've gone crazy, right? But it's not really information. But what I do with a milah is I cut portions out of the fabric of otiyot, of letters, so that they form into a statement, which then represents something. Now, what is it representing when it's human? With a computer, what it represents is the 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 quantity of information that needs to be passed to the other computer doesn't reflect anything of an inner life or experience. But hopefully, I pray when I speak, you're getting it that I'm speaking a life. I'm speaking experiences that have been contemplated and worked on and thought about, and that I have a desire to be sharing them with you. And that's a real desire. That's not a computer style desire, which is not a desire at all. It's a mechanical function, right? This is very, very important these days because people talk about artificial intelligence and wonder, could they become conscious, etc. And it's like a bunch of malarkey. It really is a bunch of malarkey because it's an entirely different context for this. I'm dwelling on this because I love the fact that it's called, these are ototu muftim. It wasn't enough for us to know about a yad chazakah v'zroa netuyah, which could be mechanical activities of God, so to speak. These are otot. These are representative symbols that indicate a desire and intention on the part of the one doing them. And that's what I want you to know about in these makot. That's what I want you to know about. What I want you to know about, and now I'll put it into a different language, is that there's a mechanical aspect of creation where all kinds of inanimate and non-conscious, or at least not overtly conscious creatures, I'm not going to get into that argument right now, but mechanical interactions between things which function according to certain laws, and they have their algorithms and formulas that govern them. And that's the deal, you know? They're not free. It's all mechanics. It's all basically limited to the way they've been designed by their designer, right? And then there are things that happen which are just not that. So then you go like, wow, it's supernatural. Okay, yeah. Meaning it's beyond the natural. That's not an oath if it's supernatural. Maybe there's just a kink in the system. Maybe it actually worked out that all that stuff we talk about probabilities and like could happen this way, could happen, that actually happened. It's just it's quantum mechanics and not just classical mechanics or something. No, 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 no. This is a message. This is a message from a being that is beyond the confinements, the Mitzrayim, the confinements of the natural mechanics and order. He's sending you something personal in this. He's trying to tell you something. That's an ode. He wants to communicate something which is not just the manipulation of things, but a desire, the ava, the desire that's within it. Okay? You see, on a certain level, we're used to thinking that God needed to do these makot in order to get us out, right? But that's kind of silly because he really could have taken care of it all at once. He could have just smitten all the Egyptians, or he could have just made them temporarily blind. I don't know, or he could have made all of their horses sick the day the Jews left and they couldn't chase them. There are many ways God could have done this, right? Something's going on here where he is sending a message. Okay, that's first of all, we need to understand that. He's sending a message. Now, first teaching of that is God is the fountainhead of freedom. He just is the fountainhead of freedom. And his activities in liberating the Jewish people from enslavement themselves are indicative of he being the fountainhead of freedom, not bound by natural laws. He's beyond that. And so are you, my friends. Don't ever, yeah, don't ever think that there's a question of whether your intelligence and inner life is anything like that of a computer or a robot. You are a freely choosing and more profoundly experiencing and living organic creature. In that you are similar to him. In that power you have, in a sense, to do miracles. Now, our miracles, may be more limited in the sense that, um, I was going to say in the sense that, you could just think about that microphone and make it go up. That may not even be miraculous, actually. There's some kind of kinesthetic energy or something. I don't know. But like, whatever it might be, right? That would be beyond the laws that usually govern is something we experience all the time in our freely choosing uh, powers of creating our lives, of doing what we choose, even if, say, all is against us, including a threat to our lives or whatever. It's quite miraculous that you could all just fly out of this country and you put your lives on the line here. I don't know if anyone told you that. Like that's a choice that is not necessarily the natural choice. There's something else which is a inner desire and drive, which is saying, I'm staying here anyway. Like most people around the world look at that and say, don't you have American citizenship? I mean, you know what I mean? Well, I'll still flying. Okay, whatever. Don't back down on it being, if not miraculous in the way we're used to thinking miraculous, it reflects a life chosen correct? That is not necessarily buffeted about by circumstances or even sometimes even self-interest, right? This is, by the way, what Moses says, what Moshe says at the very end. He saves a word. I say this in many contexts, right? He saves a word in the Torah that's never used for a human being except once in the entire Torah. Bechira, to choose. You know, it's never said in the Torah that you should choose to keep Shabbat, or you should choose to put on tefillin, or you should choose to keep kosher. Never, except one place in the entire Torah, he says, choose life. It's the only time he uses that word. It's so powerful. Cherut is within that word bechira. Same letters, chet resh, bechira and cherut. Because the only real choice is of life. And the only choosers are living creatures. Nothing else chooses. I mean, other things like evaluate what's the best way to go, but that's not real choosing life. That's like staying alive. Staying alive is not choosing life. Choosing life is forming my life into that which is the fullest expression of my being. That's choosing life. That's not choosing to live. Choosing to live, the cat does, the dog does, the bird does, right? And most of us do when we're not, faced with serious challenges and questions. So we're usually just choosing to live. You eat, you go to the bathroom, you try to eat good food, okay, whatever. But it's all like living. It's not called choosing. Choosing, the chira, is only when there's a cherut element to it. There's full freedom to manifest that which is the inner desire of your being to be fully realized as what you've been created to be. That's when the things you do become a true oath to an inner life, right? A true symbol for a semantic, a symbol for something which has an inner meaning to it, and not just a mechanical action. Okay, I'm hungry, I will eat. I'm tired, I go to sleep. There's danger, I run away. There's serious danger, I get on the plane. Tick, 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 tick. That's not choosing life. That's just staying alive, right? Okay, so staying alive are the natural rubric of our condition and our nature. Choosing life is not. That's a miracle. That's a reflection of your chirut. It goes beyond what mechanical reasoning will take you to. We need risk reduction right now. Bing, 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 reduce risk, buy ticket, get on plane, leave. Like, eh, and no one would call you on that. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, of course. Certainly not your mom. It's like, okay, but then there's a realm which is called the Chira, which Moshe only mentions the last day of his life, literally in chapter 32, I think, of Deuteronomy. Like the last day of his life, he says, "Oh, by the way, there's been a lot of good decisions I've been telling you about. Put on tefillin, you'll live longer. Take care of your parents, you'll live longer. Eat kosher, you know, you'll be holier, etc., etc." There's a lot of good decisions you could be making, and those are good decisions. But bechira, or you want to talk about cherut, then you need to talk about something which comes from within a true desire of life. And then what you do becomes, in a sense, an oath. It's a sign of the passion you have that has taken you beyond the rubric of mechanics. Okay? Well, God sends otot when he's doing these miracles. It's a mirror image of what we're being called to. Just like I am doing this, we can talk about the nature of the otot, right? That they are plagues, etc. But nevertheless, the fact that they are non-natural itself is a reflection of me having desire. The Egyptians try to call God out on that, right? Remember when Moses does one of the tricks, they say, "Oh man, the rabbi say, oh, you brought some hay to hayland, huh? It's like you just brought some hay out to where do they grow hay? You just brought some potatoes into Idaho, huh? We're really good with magic around here." Like, and he calls in like little kids, and they do the same tricks. They turn the rod into a snake, and no big deal. We can do that too. Hey, turn water into blood. We're alchemists. We can do that one also. And like until it gets to the kinim, very interestingly, until it gets to the lice. So that one we can't do for whatever fascinating reasons. But for our purposes, you see that they're challenging this as being something which is coming with intentionality. It's just you playing with the materials at hand. Okay. So, but the reason that happens at the beginning of the story is in order to create a contrast that no, this is not that. This is there's someone talking to you, and that talking is not a mechanical artificial intelligence talking to you. It's a being with intentionality, desire, and loves talking to you. So lay off my people. And everyone watching that is meant to be inspired. Wow. And I'm in the divine image, huh? Where are the miracles in my life that I do, right? When I'm choosing life. And by the way, it's quite a powerful truth that when you start living that way, orienting yourself to choose life, then miracles actually start happening. They do, things start happening. You meet people, you get dreams, you go on trips, someone happens your way. You get this like a phone call. What? Where'd that come from? Oh, it was a wrong number. Really? Well, who are you? Like, or whatever, like, because the will that you manifest in those choosings becomes then aligned with the divine will, which is beyond the mechanics of the universe. And then you live in a willful universe rather than in a mechanical one. You've shifted your you've shifted your plane of life, right? So that's a ben chorim. And we've talked about chirut much in the past, and I don't want to repeat myself. It's hard for me not to because I don't remember anything I've said. But what I can, so that's why I kind of rely on you. Oh, I heard that one. But for me, it's always new. but like, but the yeah, I guess. Is it too hot for you guys? What? It's getting hot. We'll cool the rule down. We'll cool it down a little bit, and then we'll turn it back off. You're okay. You're okay. I will. Wait. I'm sorry. Finish this rant. So, okay. So, like, it's important to know that, right, about these things. So this word otot, right? It's like that's an important one. Muftim is that they are unnatural. They're wondrous, right? Is a mofet, right? That he has a yad chazakah means that he when he holds back, he holds back. When he has a zroa netuyah, when he lets forth, he lets forth. Okay, so we're looking at different aspects. It's a communication. It's a beyond nature. There are different types. There's one where he's holding back, and there's one where he's holding forth, giving out. And then there's morah. Then there's just something awesome. Awesome. Awesome comes right before ot for the following reason. For God to communicate with you through his letter, right, that he's sending you, it needs you to be responsive, to be aware, to be awake. Mm-hmm. It's not going to work if you're not. That's called something called morah. Morah is awe. Awe is always a response to something great. Okay? So the Morah Gadol actually is referring to the recipients. Because again, the passing of information, we'll just go back to that model, requires not only an interiority on my part, the one who is delivering it, but also on your part, the one to whom it is delivered. If you, you know, like if I told you last week, like if I don't show up, it's because my granddaughter gave birth. My daughter gave birth. I don't have a granddaughter yet giving birth, but my daughter gave birth. So and say this young lady over there with the pink headband wasn't here last week. So when you all come in and I'm not here, so you start smiling and giggling and thinking, oh, how nice. And she's looking around like, what's going on? And then you say to her, well, he's not here. And she says, I know, like, you don't like his class that much? I mean, like, why are you giggling that he didn't come? Like, what's going on? She's completely unable to know, right? I mean, I'm exaggerating it, but she doesn't know. Nothing's delivered. But let's say, I don't know, let's say I was hoping you'd be happy when I not come, right? But someone's embittered about her life. And so when she says, oh, no, she thinks birth. Will I ever give birth? Forget it. It's gone for me. And then her inner experience is entirely different, right? But she's getting the information, but it's filled with a very different meaning than for someone else, right? These can be very sensitive issues, like because they are intertwined. It's not absolute well, he's just not that's why the only fact here is he didn't come this morning. That's the only fact, right? Everything else is your inner experience of it because of the information you have, because of your own life, because of what you're hoping for yourself, because of what you love, because of the experience you had as a child. I mean, like, oh my gosh, it is so rich, right? It is so rich. And I meant my not coming to be that rich for you, you know? But like, okay, I'm just into this subject right now, but it's I happen always to get into subjects just when I'm about to teach something that's relevant to it. But the point is, Morah, Morah is an inner experience, awe. God can't make you have awe, can he? Just like God can't make you get the message. I don't know if the Egyptians got the message. They might have, the message they got was, ooh, boy, man, this God is strong. We better not mess with him. I don't think they got the message, wow, this is a world of freedom beyond the mechanics of nature. I mean, just like, just Pharaoh, maybe it's time to give up, you know? Okay, so it's important to appreciate this, that the verse includes within it not just the activities of God, but the response of the recipient, the Morah Gadol, the awesome, the great awesomeness. This, the Maharal of Prague explains in the REA, something which we say all the time. We say, Hakel Hagadol Hagibor V'Hanorah. He's the great, powerful, and awesome. And in Hebrew, the awesome is a it's a passive form because it's something happening to you. It's not something he can do. Another way the rabbis say this is everything's in God's hands except the awe of God. Everything's in God's hands except the awe of God. He can't make you have awe of him. He can create all kinds of circumstances, but you just may keep misreading them or be so recalcitrant, be so rebellious that you don't want to. And you know who was like that? Pharaoh becomes the image of the one who will not listen. He's not listening. We keep trying. He's not listening. Lo yishma lechem paro. He's not going to listen. And even when he wants to listen, we make sure he can't listen. And we're going to need to talk about that also, I think. I mean, I'd love to talk about that. It's less present in the Haggadah. Right now, what I'm saying is very present in these words. We're about to see how they play it out in the drasha. But it's very important for us to see that contrast is very real, right? That he doesn't listen. He doesn't listen. Like, why is listening so elemental? Because listening means responsiveness. And responsiveness is your freedom to be a fully conscious creature, picking up what is being communicated to you by a fully conscious non-creature God, right? And are you listening? If you're not, then you will not have morah. God can do everything he does, but it's just not a communication if you're not listening. And Pharaoh becomes actually the image of the one who doesn't listen. The Jewish people become the image of the ones who do. Okay, so this is like kind of like an overarching um, introduction to one aspect of the plagues. Here's another one. I'm sorry, I know you wanted to say something. I'll cut back to you, okay?
You can hit the end, it's okay.
Cool.
I'll write it down.
Oh, thank you. And here's another one. I want you to remember where we are holding in terms of the prophecy that was given to Abraham. Remember the Brit Ben Abitarim when he said, what kind, as I translated, what kind of knowing do I need to truly inherit this place? And then God said, ooh, knowing. Gee, you had an ancestor who wanted to know and went into exile. That's what's going to happen to them too. I'm talking about Adam, right? Okay, Adam and Eve, to know, right? Good.
What did Adam want to know?
What's that?
What did Adam want to know?
Good and evil.
He ate from the tree
The
of
tree of knowledge.
Oh,
Yeah, and then he went into exile. So knowledge comes by.
yes.
Knowledge comes by working your way through it. It doesn't come by something I can just implant into you. It's not a download. Information might be a download of the sort of artificial intelligence, right? When I say it's just such a perversion of the words, it's not fair. They use the same words that we use about ourselves, but like, and we have an aspect of our brain which is calculating. Obviously, we calculate things, but that's like so minimal in terms of our experience of life so dot is like a full-bodied and fully experienced and realized knowledge. Okay, that's why it becomes carnal knowledge also. It's like the same kind of fullness and wholeness. Okay, so you don't want to just get information, right? You don't want to just download into them. It's like something that requires the fullness of their lives. Okay, so they will need to go into exile. And then here's the verse, and listen to how perfectly the Haggadah has structured itself. Here's the verse. They will go to a land which is not theirs, right? They will go into a land which is not theirs. Well, that was Arami Oved Avi, Vayered Mitzrayim, right? That we had an Aramean who tried to destroy us when we were in exile, and then we ended up in another exile. That's Eretz Lo Lahem. Va'avadum, and they will work for them. Remember all the stuff we talked about, work and alienated work and authentic work, etc. V'inu otam, they will afflict them. Remember where we were just 2 weeks ago? That vayanunu, that they afflicted them, and that was because they forced them apart from their wives in the deeper sense of what that meant, etc. Then after that, it says it'll be for 400 years, and then he will take them out, right, at 400 years. Then it says, "V'gam et hagoy asher yavodu dan anochi," and the people that they will have been serving, I will judge them. Hey, that's where we're up to in the Haggadah, where he judges them with the plagues. Amazing. It's a perfect structure. The way this person speaks when he brings the first fruits parallels the way God spoke to Abraham. Because now he gets to the plagues, which is when God judges them, right? Or sends judgments down to them. So there's the elements that I've been talking about, right? Which is that the plagues indicate freedom. Okay. But here's another level, right? Which is that this is a fulfillment of what that prophecy was, that they will be judged. But then how does that serve the message of freedom? The, so to speak, thesis of this entire series has been that every step of the way we're discovering more of what it means to be a Ben Chorin. How does them getting judged add to that? How does them getting judged add to that? Right? And here's, yeah, okay, you hear the question? Like, does it add to that, or is it just God getting back at them? Or, after all, the Old Testament God, he's the one big on justice and everything, right? And so maybe he's angry again. I don't know. Like what's going on there? What's the story? And why is that so important to be told to Abraham? See, Abraham didn't need to hear that if it wasn't part of the tale of getting back to full inheritance of the land. Correct? Right? We didn't. It's like if it's just that he has to, that it's a just world, so they will be punished. So that shouldn't be part of the prophecy. I mean, if it happens, it happens. Let God take care of that. That's not. Do I need to know that to understand what kind of knowledge they need in order to truly be in this land? Do I need to know that? Apparently, right? And then it gets even worse. And they're going to get wealthy from all of this. They're going to leave with great riches. Well, after we finish this, you know what happens? We eat the meal. Finally, yay! But that's actually a reflection of, and then they will leave with great riches. You get it? It's a perfect structure following what God told Abraham. The whole thing is built around that. So this is I bring this also as support for my claim that that's what's being unfolded here. Is the inner meaning of that prophecy so that we can acquire the knowing which is necessary to become the inheritors of Abraham, the inheritors of this land. And all of that is tied in with being B'nai Chorin, being those who are able to choose life in its fullness. Okay? So you see how it's like tied together. There's some kind of a knowing we need that comes by virtue of them having been judged. And here we are talking about those judgments. Okay, so that's now where I want for us to dwell a little bit. What does justice have to do with freedom? It looks like the opposite in a way, Looks like the opposite in a way. Just let them off the hook, man. Let's just all move to North California. Just let them off the hook. So it's okay. A little shoplifting. Come on, it was under $983. Just let them live. What's wrong with you people? Why are you so judgmental all the time? Bring people to justice. Goldie, there was something like that.
I was gonna ask what is, but you're
Okay, yeah, that's where I'm headed. Okay, great. So now what is that? So let's think about that a little. Let's think about our very, very beginning definitions of things that we explored. Remember when we talked about how I have something, it's hard for me to control myself. I'll just say it. And then after this, we sing a song called Dayenu. Dayenu, which is the same root of din. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, I just ruined the song for everyone. It was like if you had taken us out but hadn't, done this or done that, it would have been enough for us. Well, enough has everything to do with din. Meaning, din provides exactly what is appropriate. That's what din does, right? Din says this is appropriate to you. Din will also be, by the way, the source of you having exactly what you need. Din is also a good thing. It's not just a bad thing, right? Din provides. Din is the great provider, actually, in the Kabbalah. Din is the great provider. It's not the great taker, it's the great provider. It's the great provider because it's able to define your boundaries and provide you with what is appropriate to you. Chesed would just keep pouring it on. You might get drowned by it. But Din gives proper boundaries so that you can live within the reality which is meant for you. That's pretty important, especially if we're thinking about Cherut, right? Remember when we talked way back in the day that the first usage of the word Cherut is in the Torah a word called Harut. Oh, man. Harut. Sorry about that. Harut al Luchot means that it was carved into the Ten Commandment stones. Remember we talked about this way back at the beginning. Not listen back. Harut, carved in, becomes the root for Cherut. Ta-da! Just a little hole between the and the patach there, and it becomes Cherut, which means freedom. How did Harut, which means engraved, become Cherut? right? And if you remember, we used that image, right, by explaining that that Cherut is not just liberation and freedom, but Cherut is the empowerment to live for something, live for something, and to be able to be able to fully manifest and realize the most meaningful life that is meaningful because it fits with the way the creation is and doesn't just float around like a
Cloud.
cloud. I was thinking of a leaf. I just couldn't think of the verb. A floating leaf, or like like meaning is together with information in the sense that well, this fits. I get it, right? I get it. It's aligned with something that's true and real, and not just something disconnected. That's chirut. And you see, here's the deal: when you're liberated and have chofesh, right? So in a way, the best you can get to is fun. You can have fun. But true joy, and think about this in your life, true joy, not the exhilarated, like just fun, but true joy, like is an inner experience of the fullness of life, is always for human beings connected somehow with being meaningful. It has meaning. And meaning is always connected to its being part of something bigger. So when you smiled, like when I said, if I'm not here, my granddaughter gave birth. It's like you smiled because like that would be a happy moment because birth is meaningful. Well, what makes birth meaningful? I mean, what's going on? It was just it's biology, right? Yeah, but there's something here about whatever it is. It's always going to be tied in with a higher truth and value that's important to you. I don't know if I would say that in some other culture whether you would smile, or if I said in a room of men, probably wouldn't. It's like, okay, I guess we're not having class today then. It's like, you know what I mean? It's like that's not meaningful. But if I told them that if I don't show up today, it's because I got the Nobel Prize. So then the men might smile and you might think, all right, whatever, it's too bad we missed class. I don't know. Like I don't mean to be, uh-oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I better watch myself. Please erase this. But like, whatever. But I mean, that's just okay. I'm just looking at you. You, Mike. Right? It's not because you're a woman or a man. But like, but the point I'm making is, which I'm actually getting myself in hot water about, is that because you have certain values that are meaningful to you, it brings you joy when they are realized, right? Simcha always has to do with that. What's called fun, kef, which isn't even a Hebrew word, has to do when you're just liberated in Disney World. It's great. Now you can have fun in Disney World alone, but you probably only have simcha in Disney World if you're, I don't know, with friends, with your children, with your spouse, something. Then it becomes, you know, it's a whole different thing, right? You can see that. Okay, I'm dwelling on this because because the difference between uh, just liberation and chirut is exactly this. Chirut is charut. It means that it is engraved into something. There's a context, there's a boundary. And within that boundary, there's all kinds of creative movement within which I create and move. But it's within that boundary. And that offers me great joy, right? true simcha. Or, in another word in Hebrew, osher, which in English is sometimes translated as happiness, but in Hebrew, I think in the Englishized Hebrew, assurance, osher, assurance, assured that this is right. What do you mean it's right? In what context it's right? Because I don't know, it helped people. So who said it's important to help people? What's important about helping people? And it's important to help people. There's a certain value I know that's true, and therefore I'm joyous when I live that. But you see how the frame of values and purpose is crucial to cherut and also to our joy, right? The joy thing I'm just throwing in because it makes it more palpable to us, because I think most of us know that like it's, you can just have fun, but it's the more disconnected from meaning it is, the more fun it is, right? But in a way, the less joyous, the more temporary, the less osher with an aleph of like assured, ashrei yoshvei veitecha. How happy are those who sit in your house? But using the word ashrei, assured. This is real. Okay. Okay, this is very, very important because I want you to recognize that all of the terminologies I'm using around framework, boundaries, interconnectedness, value, they're all din words. They're all din words. Those are not chesed words. Chesed's the wide open, enlarged expanse, right? Din is the boundaries and border conditions, and to put it more friendly and meaningful for us, the the fabric of values and purposes which creation is designed to manifest and realize, which is, of course, the commitment we have that Torah is that which the world was created from, means that the creation is embedded with values, with direction, with purpose. Okay? You can have a very creative life playing within the engraved whole, which is another meaning of the word chor, cherut. We've been through this, but I don't think it's so bad to have the review right now, because now we understand. Now we understand that if they had left and the Egyptians hadn't been appropriately done justice with, that it matters what you do. There's consequences. This is a world in which there's a system where there are values, and if you hurt someone, you will get hurt. If you enslave someone, then you're going to pay for that. Oh, just let go. No, on a certain, on a real, on a not certain, in a very profound way, a world without din cannot be a world with happiness, and cannot be a world with cherut. Because if it makes no difference what you do, and you never have to pay the consequences of your actions, then actually nothing really matters, does it? And if nothing matters, there's no weightiness to anything. And if there's no weightiness to anything, then, I mean, you can be completely liberated, but you will never taste the joy of cherut. And you will never really have the assurance on any level of that comes from living your life real. Do you understand how damaging it would be to knowing the knowledge necessary to truly be on a quest with Abraham, seeking always deeper and deeper realities, expanding your consciousness and being into greater and greater contact with what is the infinite but defined world which we live in. If you were missing that, if they had left and the Egyptians would not be judged, it would be an undermining of the kind of cherut, of the kind of freedom which I'm giving them. Because it would mean nothing makes any difference. Oh, so you kicked someone in the teeth.
got away with it because I can get away with things. You know, like, uh, no, I'll get it a little bit more, even biological. Din is like in a way, like the nervous system of the creations, the nervous system, meaning it's like in an ongoing interaction, responsiveness. It's the responsiveness. There's responsiveness. Would you want to live in a world that's not responsive to you? Do you want to be with people who are not responsive to you? Doesn't matter. You can kick, you can scream, you can stab, you can kill, you can, and nothing happens. It's like, hey, it's all fine. It's all okay. Do you know where that leads? It leads nowhere. It actually leads to depression because nothing matters. Depressed people become depressed, and the apathy which they experience, apathy is like a kind description of what it can get to, just like complete loss of any interest because nothing means anything. Doesn't mean anything. There's been no more eloquent description of that than Viktor Frankl. Like, what happened to people? Do you stay alive or you not stay alive? It depends. Do you still have vitality or not? Depends on what you find meaningful. And do you find meaning? What is the deal with that? What is the deal with that? It's the way we are structured, because the nature of our structure is that we are forever in touch with the awareness, the consciousness which lies beyond the boundaries of our bodies. And so we're in touch with what's real, and we want to be in touch with. We want to be real. You know, so it would be, I'm just going to say it anyway. It's a pathetic reductionism to say, well, that's because we're survival oriented. And so real means staying alive, and you trick yourself into thinking you'll live forever. We figured it out. It's not, that does not explain the depth of the experience of the human quest for truth, for realness, in a way which then it has this emotive response of joy, of simcha, right? Can you imagine an Egypt left to, like, okay, we're just leaving. I mean, you know, the fact that you've been causing us afflictions for 200 years, we're going to let it go this time. No, actually, we're going to let it go forever. Actually, we always let it go because nothing matters. Bye bye. We're on our way to Disney World. That's where you'd be on your way to. It's one of the really culture threatening issues we're facing right now. I mean, why should we fight? Why should we go to war? Why shouldn't we let refugees in that have an entirely different cultural system than we have? I mean, take over our country and redefine it. What, I mean, is the lifestyle that we lived anything more than just a lifestyle? Does it have something to do with greater truths and values? No, I mean, it's okay. So, you know, it's just like waves floating through, you know. Sometimes it's people who are despotic and murderous, and sometimes it's liberals, and like, you know, it's just, you know, waves floating through. I mean, that's where it ends up. It's less, unless you sense, oh, this is right, that's wrong. What do you mean right? It matters. It makes a difference. Okay, that's how we started the Seder night. The kid asks, does it make a difference? Why are we doing these different things? What difference does this night make? Those were the opening questions. And the answer to that must involve din. You get it? So that there are indeed afflictions, punishments that are in response to the way they behave is not only elemental because it indicates that God cares, is there, and is sending a message that even if the mechanics don't make it happen, I will make it happen because I care. And you care too, he says to us through that oath, right? He also says to us that your life matters, and what you do with it has consequences. And it's, you know, it's really important because there is a truth to this universe to which you're invited with cherut, if you truly understand the meaning of cherut, okay? And then, in a sense, the final statement, and we have to stop because we can the time, but the final statement is going to be, and after that, they're going to leave with great wealth. And here's the kicker. Well, the next thing we do is, after we talk about the plagues, which, as I say, really a great series on its own about the plagues, but skip ahead. After that, we go into this song called Dayenu. If you'd only taken us out of Egypt and you hadn't done all the judgments, Dayenu. If you'd have done the judgments, but you wouldn't have done it to their gods, Dayenu. If you would have done it to their gods, but you wouldn't have done away with their firstborns, Dayenu. Until it's like we get to, if you'd taken us to Har Sinai and hadn't given us the Torah, Dayenu would have been enough for us. If you'd given us the Torah, but you hadn't taken us to Israel, Dayenu. What? 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 What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Dayenu means it would have been enough for us. Been enough for us. Even if you did you read this song? Like, what do we, and it's like one of the lively moments of the Seder. Dayenu. It would have been enough if you'd never taken us out of Egypt. No, that one we don't say. Well, it's good you took us out of Egypt, but you didn't have to do the plagues. You didn't have to do it to their gods. You didn't have to do it to their firstborns. You didn't have to give us their money. You didn't have to split the sea. You didn't have to take us through the sea. You didn't have to drown them in the sea. You didn't have to give us the manna. You didn't have to supply us for 40 years in the desert. You didn't have to give us Shabbat. You didn't have to give us the Torah. You didn't have to give us the land of Israel. You didn't have to give us. It's all Dayenu. What? What? Do you get this? This is so deep. Rechush Gadol. I want to claim that the Dayenu is the final parallel before we go and eat, which is, we do get some riches here, right? But before you eat, you better know something. You better know something. You will never be satisfied unless you can say Dayenu. You will never be satisfied unless you're able to each point along the way say, wow, thank you. Really, that's enough. That's enough. That's enough. Because no wholeness is ever built on the bitterness about what I don't have. It's always built upon the celebration of what I've been given. And the most beautiful wealth a person has is in that experience of, wow, that's enough. It's exactly right for me. Din dayenu. Dan anochi leads directly into the Rechush Gadol. If you don't first know Dan anochi, meaning that this world provides you with what is appropriate to you, including responses to your actions, and including also the resources you're given, forget it. You will never be a Ben Chorin. You won't be a Ben Chorin because a Ben Chorin needs to know that what he or she has been given is precisely appropriate and sufficient for everything they need. And then a most incredible thing happens in the story, right? He does give them. He does give them the Torah. He does give them the manna. He does take them to the land of Israel. He does. You know why he does? Because at each step along the way, they were able to say, Dayen. That's the way it works. Because if you don't recognize, and I'll make it a little philosophical, if you don't recognize that what you are given is appropriate, then you're not actually living in this world. You're living in your own little solipsistic, well, why isn't it this way? Why isn't it that way? I'm just a victim. Why this is bad? Why is this terrible? In whose world is it terrible? Not in God's world. In God's world, you're being given exactly what's appropriate to you. Exactly what's appropriate to you in this world of din. Exactly what's appropriate to you. Okay? Now, I'm not saying this is an easy path, but it's not. But nevertheless, understand how crucial this is. There will never be wealth. There will never be joy in your wealth. There will never be growth from your wealth if all you are is a recalcitrant recipient, meaning all you are is rebelling against what you've been given. And this is, I know this is on the emotional level and on the intellectual level. This is very subtle and very complicated because obviously, I mean, well, you're telling me to be happy with what I've been given, and I mean, then how do things move ahead? I didn't say you can't ask for more. Did I say that? I don't remember saying that. I didn't say you are not to see it as a narrow strait compared to what you envision for the future. I'm just saying, if you're going to call out, then call out from enslavement. Calling out from the enslavement, if you remember, we talked about that, is not calling out because of your dissatisfaction. It's calling out because I've become trapped and have lost my vision and have lost my selfhood. Okay, that's something to call out about. Okay. And sometimes even the good things you've been given become an entrapment. I don't want God to become an entrapment, but I do want to be happy with what I've been given. Can you play that one? That's something to sing about. Diano, Diano. It really is. Diano, Diano. And then you go on listing all the great things God did. And then at the end of the song, you say, wow, how much doubled and doubled over and doubled over good things God has done for us. He took us out of Egypt. He did signs. He did judgments. He did this. He did all the things we said. We didn't need him to do those. No, no, no. We never said we don't need him to do those. We said we'd be happy whatever he gives us. That's the Rechush Gadol, which is the Rechush Gadol of the Ben Chori. I live in a world where things matter, where there's din, where there's appropriateness, dayenu. I can say that dayenu to the din, and I can really be joyous in what I've been given, and it doesn't block me from seeking more. It only energizes it more. It does. And that's my blessing to us as we leave our classes on the Haggadah that we had the great joy of sharing. Me too. Okay, hang on a second. Let's just appreciate the applause for me. The excitement of finishing it. And yeah, okay. Questions about this, sharings about this, what yeah. So it's an open floor.
All right. I heard that
L'chaim, you go ahead.
the Egyptians were.
What's your name again?
Javon.
Okay.
Yeah, so I heard that the Egyptian society was bald and that they but only the Jews had hair.
I don't know anything about that.
So what is the connection?
I have no
No,
idea.
I'm just telling you
Sorry.
it's a historical fact that ancient Egyptians were bald society, they were Greeks, they shaved, they didn't because of lies. So I'm just picking up what you said about lies. So what do you think is the connection with Jews with lies? Because Jews had hair, and the miracle that they couldn't do was with lies.
What a creative interconnecting of elements.
Yeah. I just want to know your opinion, and otherwise, if you don't know, it's fine. And the other
Well, why are despotics often shave themselves bald? That's a question, and I think I have an answer to that. It actually comes from the parsha of Korach. Remember Korach?
Yeah.
Korach's main, I got you. Korach's main what's it called? Antagonist is Aaron, the Kohn, right? He says, in the end, that's the way it turns out, right? Actually, the rabbis say that Aaron had long hair and a really nice hairstyle. And Korach, the very word means kereach, which is bald. He's the bald guy. And Moses gets it that he's actually despotic. He wants to get control of everyone and everything. This is a long class, but to put it short, hair represents individuation, individuality.
Baldness means I'm just staying right what I am. Baldness oftentimes represents din. It's not flowing. But the false application of din is when you use your powers of stricture to restrict the flow of life. So the baldness reflects that restricting the flow of life that despotic cultures have, right? Because it's like I'm getting rid of my personality. When you go into the Marines, you don't go to the Marines with long hair, baby. You shave your head because you got to fit the rules. I'm glad you're asking this because that's where din becomes the antithesis of what din is meant to be. Din is only in the service of life, but that's where din becomes antithetical to life in the bald culture.
Interesting. And one last question. Maybe what's your thoughts about the connection with your Aleph, Vav, Tet is Ot? So
Tough, yeah.
what if I put instead Mem in the middle and take away the Vav, and then I have Emet? What is your understanding of truth with the sign or something? Very interesting.
I like it. I like it because an oat is a true an appropriate oat becomes a authentic, and really emet means more authentic than it does mean truth, by the way, right? It's mat'im. But that's, it's a very, very important conversation of its own. But it's not some objective truth. Ot and emet do go together beautifully. Beautiful insight about that because the real meaning of emet is that it's authentic. And an oat as a symbol is only meaningful to us if it's an authentic expression of the one who is expressing it. Imagine the oat of Lavan, the deceiver. It's all disingenuous. It's all lies. It's like all the signaling he does is to trick you. It's the opposite of emet. It's not an oat because it doesn't truly reflect who he is and what it doesn't. It might reflect what he is, but it doesn't reflect the truth of what reality is. And he's always see that. So an oat has to be emet. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, sure. You should know all participants in this class always say brilliant things. It's my job to show you that that's what it was. Okay.
Thank you
Anyhow.
so much, Raf.
Oh, there you are. Okay, Karen.
Here I am. Yes, yes. I couldn't come. So sorry.
A
But
pleasure.
I'm glad I was able to listen through here.
Bye. See, go well. What was that? Another question back there. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
So I heard that. So what about? So Jews were more hairy than?
This was. I mean, I don't know this historically to be so, but
You could look on
it was something to riff on anyway.
I thought Egyptians just shaved.
Okay, but that's why you raised your hand? That was why you raised your hand before? Oh, really? Okay. Okay, all the best, guys. Bye-bye. Shalom. What? Yeah.
Bye, Raf.
What? Okay. I don't know what that involves. I'm turning it off. Sorry. Bye-bye, Karen. Anyone who wants the selfie can write to Beirut.